The comments heard on The View from a Pew are those of Mac McCoy and are not necessarily the opinions of his guests, his producer Garth, any one particular denomination or religion, the church lady, Mr. Lemke, Pastor Craig, or anyone else of sound mind and body. Now here is today's The View from a Pew, heard all around the world on YouTube. Just search for The View from a Pew.
Well, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to the 7th day of October in the Lord's year 2025. And I know that you are listening to this or watching this, maybe live, but maybe not. But up front, we always tell you the date, so you know that if we're talking about current events, or if we say something like, or if we say something and you go, well, that was like 4 months ago. That's because these shows are done live and then put on podcasts and webcasts so you can watch them at any time. All right, today it's The View from a Pew, and I've got my co-host Steve in here, and we've been sitting here for almost 2 days getting our microphones and our cameras ready. What's your wife's name? Bev, I want to thank you for the investment into our show, and hopefully today you see it a little better than before. And if not, you have my invitation to come into the studio and help us set this up right. I have a buddy named Marty who's been in radio and TV for years, and he's always watching, and he'll give me notes about, wow, that was a good conversation. And then he'll say, Mac, your water cup's in the way. Yeah, that's where it goes, my water cup. This isn't TV.
Well, Mac is extremely protective of his area in here.
Well,
I mean,
yeah, do you think?
I touched...
You move that box and...
I didn't even try to do anything wrong, and I got ostracized. In fact, Mac, I was thinking, the way you attacked me, I was thinking about something.
I didn't attack you yet.
So we've had quite a little commotion previous to the show starting. And so I was thinking this weekend, I'm at McDonald's, and I was going to ask you if you've ever approached McDonald's for a sponsorship. And the reason I said that is because we could just change the name to the Mac Attack. And
oh, jeez.
I think they'd go for it. Isn't that a reasonable thought?
I'll give you 20%. You go ahead and get that, okay?
I just want a lifetime of quarter pounders personally.
Whatever you want, you just let me know.
I like their belts too. Have you ever had one of their endless belts? It's a good belt. No, the employees at McDonald's, they have the neatest belts, and they're better than the military belt. You get it? No kidding. You guys got to get with it. If you haven't done that yet, man.
I've never gone anywhere and looked at anyone's belt. I think that's real weird.
Well, maybe I have to look down to see where I'm going. I have bifocals.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
All right.
By the way, I want to just a disclaimer real quick. If I look like I'm falling asleep during the production, that's probably the case. But it could be that my eyelids like kind of droop. So I'll try to keep my eyes more open so you think I really am awake.
You don't have to. You just... You can shut your eyes if you want.
Okay, well, thank you. It does help.
And for those of you who are watching this show and it's not your first time, you're probably noticing that Steve is using my microphone because he didn't like his microphone. So I had to give him my microphone today. And that took us about 10 minutes to figure out.
Well, what I was really doing...
Who am I looking at right now?
Well, listen. What I was really trying to demonstrate was envy. I was trying to make it really real to Mac what I meant by that. I don't want something like yours. I want yours. And so this is what we've had shows talking about envy, and this is what it's all about.
There we go.
Now, here's the thing about it, though. Now that I've got it, it doesn't make me any happier. It's amazing. You think if I got exactly what I wanted, that'd make everything just right.
Yeah.
Now, it makes me feel good that I got one up on him.
Okay.
But it doesn't really give me any great pleasure to have it.
Well, apparently it
like
should.
I do like it, though, man.
Good. I'm glad you're happy. It's only been my microphone for, I don't know, since 08.
Well,
08.
About time for a change.
Yeah. Okay. You're talking into my cough pad there. So it's covered with my germs. All right. Today, the first 4.5 minutes of this show was I'm sorry, I really am. But that's what happens when you get two guys that work very, very well together. We get going. Now, in this program, in this version or episode of The View from a Pew, Steve, my co-host, comes up with a topic he wants to talk about, and then he gives me kind of an outline. And so when I'm looking down like this, I'm looking at the outline, so I won't be looking right at the camera at that time.
Let me interject something. Whenever Mac is looking down, you just need to know he's confused. And so if you see him looking down a lot, I mean, that's a disclaimer. I mean, I need to let people know what's happening a little bit. Okay.
All right, on to the topic, the rise of non-denominational churches. Now, I'm curious, why don't we call this the rise and fall?
Well, that's a good question, as you usually do have these really good questions, because I don't think it's a rise and fall.
It hasn't fallen yet, has it?
Well, it depends. That's true. But something has fallen or is in the process of falling in order for this to happen. So the rise and fall, or the fall and rise, is still in effect.
Well, what we could say is the rise and fall of the church.
Yeah,
denominational.
Well, you always aren't you curious about the word of the day?
Yeah, but that's not the word of the day. The word of the day is what? Pentecostal?
No, the word of the day is rejuvenate. Rejuvenesce.
Oh, you can't even say it.
I'm having trouble. Rejuvenesce.
Is it in here somewhere?
It's at the very beginning.
Rejuvenate. REJUVENESENCE. Rejuvenate.
It is a difficult one, and of course that's why I put it there. But here's the reason. I wanted to hear you try to say it. And of course I had to try to say it first.
I don't think you've done it right.
Well, I
think it's way too long in spelling.
It is an interesting word because it's used as in a revival, the act of or bringing something to life, public attention, vigorous activity. Now, the reason that's important is if we're having a rise in non-denominational, we've had that discussion about crazy versus not. And in both cases, it's proven beyond a reasonable doubt that we're both nuts. And so, therefore, the argument is...
Smells like bourbon in here.
No, I really don't like bourbon. I take a root beer any day, really.
Okay.
Full sugar is good. I mean,
right.
Cane
sugar. You as my grandchildren need to stay away from sugar when you come in here. You're bouncing off the walls when you get in here.
I tell you what, pure cane sugar on a soft drink. You just can't believe how good that is. We've forgotten how good it is. Okay.
So my first question for you today in the rise of non-denominational churches is, what is the largest and quietest trend in American Christianity?
Well, that's a circular question, isn't it? Because it is the rise of non-denominational churches. Approximately 1/3 of the Protestant churches, or I should say about 1/3 of our population is Protestant. And of these, that's 140 million roughly. In the early 70s, 3% claimed to be non-denominational. 3%. Now it's 35%.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the thing that's most interesting to me is the fact that it is quiet. When Jesus was on earth and he's doing his thing, and after that, sure, people martyred. I mean, but it was a quiet thing. I mean, it wasn't like he didn't come down and give everybody swords and the latest machine guns and, missiles, none of that stuff. So the whole thing behind Christianity is to stand firm, be courteous, be respectful, play by the rules, but be strong and put God first. Well, right now, this non-denominational rise is playing by those rules.
Okay, let's talk for a minute. When was the last, what do I want to call it, revolution in the Christian church before non-denominational churches?
You mean like upheaval?
No, well, I guess you could use that word if you want.
Reformation type thing?
Very good, that's it.
Well, actually, one we had just very recently, as we speak, is the Methodist schism.
Right, but yes, but I would call The United Methodist Church and the Methodist Church. What's the other one called? The World Methodist Church?
Well, that's kind of a misnomer. There is the World Church, Methodist Church, or called the World Church, but it's simply one that invited people to join them, but not everybody's gone that way at all.
Yeah, when the United Methodist Church ended up changing some of its rules to be a pastor or to serve, then many of the churches, I don't know if many is the right word, some of the churches left the United Methodist Church, and they had the choice to either go to the World Methodist Church. Is that right? Is that the right name?
Well, yeah, I'll just call it World. I think there's a fuller description of it, but I that's not too important. The point, here's what happened. It's real simple. Imagine the Book of Discipline by the United Methodist Church being the Constitution of the United States. Just imagine that.
We have a book of, what did you just call it?
Book of Discipline.
We have a book of discipline?
A Book of Discipline is what they go by.
I feel very much like a
rules.
Catholic.
Yeah, they're patterned much in some ways. The Methodist Church was, because it's top down, okay, more so than bottom up, which is radically different. Even in the appointment of the pastors and everything, it's done by the bishop, not by the people, and so on. The Lutheran would be the opposite. Okay, at least some of the Lutherans. So what happened it wasn't some fickle thing here. Right now in our country, we talked about culture before, and how culture, if it imbues a religion too much, it can contaminate with the culture. The culture can be off track. Well, that's what happened. Like with our present situation in the United States, we have places they don't want to uphold the law. The Methodist Church hierarchy was not adhering to their own rules. Think of that.
Okay.
So people said, wait a minute, the doctrine is the doctrine. Why are you changing your interpretation of the Bible? All of a sudden you say what was wrong now is right. And it didn't make sense. So the people that left the denominations, that voted to leave the denomination, at our particular church was 95% voted to leave, it made it look like to the public that we were the bad guys and we don't want to have freedom for everybody and all that. It had nothing to do with that. It had to do totally with where they were going. And it was going the wrong way. It wasn't anything to do with the past.
Well, and let's be careful here. And if you disagree with this, just let me know. But it was society that moved away from us. We didn't move away from society.
I would say that what you're saying is the same thing I'm saying.
Okay.
The society, the culture invaded.
You're just saying it better than
Yeah. Well, the culture invaded the church, and quite frankly, what happened? If you go. We'll kind of jump ahead here a little bit, but basically, the Lord said that I tell you that you are Peter, and upon this rock I'll build my church, and the gates of Hades will not overcome it. Now, no matter how you take the word church, what that means is that it's going to have to be renewed periodically. If it gets off track, it's got to get back on track. And that's what's going on. If this has happened, you asked the question when the last time was. Let's go to the first time. The Catholic schism was the first time this happened.
Yeah.
The second major time.
Luther.
Yeah, Protestant Reformation. That's the second major time. In my humble opinion, I haven't read this. This is just my thinking. But I think this is the time that with the non-denominational rise, that we're seeing another major change going on in reference to the church losing themselves, getting off the wrong path, not responding, and the people, God's going to work through the Spirit. He's going to set a course, and that's what's happening.
My name's Mac McCoy, and in my studio today is my co-host Steve, and the topic today is the rise of non-denominational churches. Well, okay, maybe you're right. We're saying the same thing. I don't feel like we've moved, and when I say we, I mean Christians. I don't mean Methodist or Lutherans or Catholic. We, the church, we're the church. I don't believe we have moved. What's moved is the culture. The
That's
culture.
that's what I'm saying. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, the culture said, well, we don't like that the Bible says this is a sin, so we're gonna ignore it and do it anyway. And God's upstairs just looking down, going, "Come on, kids, what are you gonna do? You gonna mess this up for 200 years, and then I gotta put y'all back together? Because it's the pendulum swinging."
Yes, and Marx. That's another thing altogether. But someday we'll go maybe to that. But Marx had a philosophy that basically says that the government will play out going too extreme, react too extreme. For example, if you look at Nazism and look at communism, or you look at fascism versus communism, there are two extremes, one on the left, one on the right, in the extreme. And they needed both each other to make each other grow, if you will. But what comes out of it then is something in the middle or some whatever, but it's a very painful experience. In the United States right now, we're going through basically a silent civil war, in my opinion. And I think that
we're going through a bloodless civil war.
Well, there's people getting killed, unfortunately.
Okay.
I mean, to be candid about it, I wish
Yeah,
it was.
you're right.
I wish it was bloodless, but it's not. And we're really operating more like a third world country where you can shoot the leader down and hope for your best next time. It's like that. It's sad, and it's all because we're not wanting to uphold laws. Now, with the United Methodist Church, and maybe it's good to talk about this, but basically what was going on is they decided this gal said, well, I'm gay and I'm married to another woman, but I want to be bishop, much less a pastor. They made her a bishop against all the laws that they have in the Book of Discipline. And then from that, then they said, well, gee whiz, if she's going to be a bishop and we're going to bless gay people, we got blessed now. And that means that that's normal, not out of the ordinary. So now can't reference certain things in the Bible because that goes against what we're doing. And pretty soon you got the dog wagging the tail wagging the dog, and that's what was going on.
Okay, so what was the one before this? What was the center of splitting churches before this? I know the answer.
Are you talking about the Reformation?
No.
I am.
Go to the 50s. It was divorce. In the Catholic Church, it still is this way today. If in the Catholic Church you get a divorce, you're probably not going to be able to get married in the Catholic Church again, and you won't be able to get communion.
I would say the biggest, that's an interesting thought. You could even go back. Really, that's a carryover, really, from Judaism. Judaism, I know a number of previous Jews that became Christians, and they're disowned. I mean, not only financially, everything. It really, and was it my grandfather or great grandfather? My grandfather disowned a daughter for marrying a Jew. Actually, think of that.
Well, and I think there's something in the middle, and I don't mean in the middle as in average. I mean we're talking now about laws being broken in church and biblical ways. Before that, we were talking about marriage. I think what happened before that was the segregation of churches that said we're not going to segregate anymore. You are good enough, no matter what the color of your skin, is to go to the same church.
I think what you're saying, Mac, and you're right, that the Christian body that Jesus wants to protect on earth is always going to speak out against the changes that shouldn't occur. But the churches, unfortunately, sometimes, I'm talking about hierarchy now, the leadership can waver. And that's where we get into some issues.
Yeah, and by the way, I'm Mac McCoy. My co-host is Steve, and this is The View from a Pew. We're talking about the rise of non-denominational churches, and we're really having a good conversation here, but I'm pretty sure this is just going to be part one. So now let me take a step in this area. I tell people that I love Jesus and I want to do everything he wants me to do, but I'm not religious. Now, how would you describe someone who says that? And we haven't talked about this, so this is just off the cuff. If somebody said to you, I love Jesus, but I'm not religious.
I'm okay with it. And let me explain why.
Okay.
Well, I'm not okay with it per se, but rather if I believe a person can be spiritual
No,
without being religious.
I
do
didn't use
believe
that word
No, I know you didn't.
because I think that's different.
I know. I'm introducing it though.
Okay.
So I don't think one can simply be, I think you have to have some commitment. So to say I'm fine, but I don't need anything, that alone tells you you're not fine.
Okay, so what's your definition of religious? If someone is religious, what's your definition of that?
On the face, to me, it means that they have some exposure to some belief outside of man, and in itself almost means nothing, because if one is religious, that means he could go and uphold rules, go to church, and be like every other Pharisee was in the Old Testament. To me, that alone has little substance. Now, in the world, to say you're religious, well, if you're religious, that must be you'd be a good candidate for this or a CEO or whatever. Okay, so, but religious to me, from a Christian point of view, alone doesn't mean nothing.
Okay, let me throw an idea at you. If you're religious, you have man's law mixed with the biblical law. And if you are just a Jesus freak with an attitude like me, there isn't much man's law that matters to me.
Well,
and those are the things that separate us in denominations.
Yeah, I think, I was brought up religiously. We went to church every Sunday and we did all the things we were supposed to do. I mean, we sinned, but we tried to abide by all the rules. And I've always thought that was interesting. And how many times can you say a prayer, and how many this and that? But I've known some extremely fine people and I would always put my money or my future with somebody who was truly committed spiritually, where he humbles himself before the Lord in everything he does. And does that mean he can't go to church? No. Does it mean he has to go to church? No. It certainly is going to have a fuller experience, be with, group of people like believing, and Jesus was for that. But I do believe if I had my choice, I'd take a spiritual person over a religious person any day, because their heart is in the right place. And that's what I'm trying to say. If you're doing something under obligation only, and I'm not saying that is the case, but for those that do, and I know how, and a lot of churches I've been to, Catholic ones, how I know where their heart is they're the ones that are backed in so they can get out faster. They're the ones that take communion and run out the door. I'm telling you what, they did just the bare minimum, but they did what they needed to do, see? So, if you go by the letter of the law, that's what I call religious in a strict sense. And certainly if you're religious and spiritual, I just can't leave it alone that way. I can't. Religious alone to me is just meaningless. It doesn't get you too far. It gets you in the door, but doesn't get you much further,
Okay, so let me give you an idea or example, if I might, of the different man-made rules. Okay, that's in the church. I'm looking for a list here because I actually have a list. First one, I'll throw this at you: sprinkle or dunk.
Don't matter.
Doesn't matter.
I don't care.
Okay.
I don't think
What's the
Jesus
Bible
does.
say?
I don't think they care. I don't think. Now, if you want to be fundamental about it, now we're talking about fundamental. Back then, I don't know if they had any good sprinklers. I don't know what they had going, but they had a river, so they used the river. Okay, so Jesus was dunked, as was John the Baptist and people he did. But personally, I don't think it matters. Some denominations say dunking, others say sprinkling. It goes back to the intent. You're hung up on a rule. Doesn't matter.
That's my point.
Yeah, doesn't matter.
Okay. Now, what about the person that would say, well, John the Baptist, if you got baptized, then you were submerged. But if you became a Catholic, then all you had to do was sprinkle.
Well, I think this obviously the early Catholics didn't know how to swim, and so they tried to. I have fear of water, so I couldn't go under, and really be very happy about it. It doesn't matter. I think a lot of these things evolved over practical concerns too. Certainly when you're when baptizing a baby, as the Catholics believe, it's pretty hard to put them underwater without getting into some real problems. I mean, and so there's enough problems out doing that. So now the Baptists tend to want to always submerge them, but they always want to submerge them when they're 13 or 14 older. Well, they can handle that at that time. Big deal. If you're going to mass baptize, unless you got an ocean nearby or a really calm river or a lake that isn't super cold and the weed doesn't pull you down or something, it's going to be a lot simpler to sprinkle or whatever, So God doesn't really care. He cares that you care. Period. He doesn't care how you care. He just wants you to care.
Now, you realize if there was a Catholic priest sitting here right now, he'd call foul very loudly.
Why would he call foul?
Because the church says this is how we're going to do it. And when you and I use the word church, we mean us. When they use the word church, they mean the Pope.
Well, yeah, part of the reason the Reformation occurred, part of the reason that schism occurred, Catholic schism, was over the Pope primarily.
Yes.
They said, no, it's not bishops of equals, but one that's above all the bishops now. And there's nothing in the Bible that really says that. You think, okay, well, yeah, Peter was the first, so that means something. Well, if that was the case, why did it take him so long to get a pope? It didn't make sense. Administratively, it might be a good idea. I don't know. That's not really my concern. So after that, then you get the Protestant Reformation because, quite frankly, the church is doing anything and everything but what seems to make sense. They were abusing their power. Now, I don't know of any organization that could have had that much power and that much money that wouldn't have gotten, abuse would not have entered. I think it'd be impossible. To the Catholics' defense, when they did the Council of Trent, which I like to call the Council of Entrenchment because they just locked down. However, they did reform in terms of having people having a certain education. They did do some major reform, but they didn't try to incorporate any changes. And in fact, they did everything they could to exclude them. So the idea, Luther believed in concelebration, where the species, it's both bread and the body, and wine and the blood. Whereas the Catholics, they said, well, we've always done this. So they had to come up with something. So they said, oh, let's see. Okay, we're going to say it changes, and we're going to call it transubstantiation, which was never used before. It was only in defense of Luther. And then that's when they brought the Apocrypha books in, the extra books.
Yep.
Before that, if you were a Catholic, you could read them. It's just like reading a novel. You can read them. Pretty good reading. No problem. After the Reformation, you had to read them. That was gospel. Why? There are three different things in there. One of them was over concelebration. In other words, it was to support the church's position on certain things. Sounds terrible. Call it politics, but that's the way it is.
Okay, so this is The View from a Pew. I'm Mac. You're listening to Steve. We're in a conversation right now on the rise of non-denominational churches, and we're very much at the beginning of this conversation. So,
How many sisters do you have?
I have one.
Okay. You know how many sisters there are in the Protestant denomination?
7.
And why do they call them the 7 sisters?
Because there are 7 churches.
No.
Well, there are 7 denominations.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, they're the largest ones. So the 7 sisters, I just want to point this out real quick, include the United Methodist Church, although that's changing, the Evangelical Lutheran Church of America, the Presbyterian Church, the American Baptist Churches, the Episcopal Church, and the United Church of Christ, and the Christian Church. Those are the 7 sisters. Now, Why? What would this be? I'm making this up as I go, really am. But if you watch the
No kidding.
Dow Jones averages, and it's based on 30 stocks. Now, there's thousands of stocks, so you got 30. Well, they happen to be really big companies and with a lot of influence. Well, the Seven Sisters are watched because they're the big ones, okay? I mean, we've got so many out there. So the thing about this that's important is all of these are seeing vast declines in membership. All of these Seven Sisters, not one. That's why I think this is a real major movement. If we just saw one or two, maybe that'd be different. But we're seeing declines all the way across the board. And so as a result of that, I think this is truly a revival.
Okay, but now you said you read off 7. And I'm not going to I don't want to get in the weeds on this, but there are probably 12 different Lutheran churches.
Bless them.
Denominations.
Bless them.
So the denomination is Lutheran, and then the sect would be, for instance, the Missouri Senate, okay, or the Wisconsin Senate.
That's all well and good.
And the ELCA church, believe it or not, is starting to slip away.
So here's what it's like. It's okay. You got a major company, but it's now not in the Dow Jones average 30. It's in number 35. It's not in the top 25. It's number like in a rating. Okay. So what? That's good and well, and that's the way it is. But the main thing is you got to have some indicators to watch. So sometimes the S&P 500 is up and the Dow's down and so on. But when you watch the 7 biggest ones, regardless how they're broken out by sub-denominations, when they're all doing the same thing, that says something. So if the Dow Jones is consistently down, that says something. Something is going on, or consistently up. And yeah, you take some of these, give you an example. United Methodist Church, they went from 11 million in the 60s to less than 5 million today. The Episcopal Church reports now only 400,000 attendees on a good Sunday. That's the best. Some of these are going to go out pretty soon. There's just nothing holding them because they're not adhering to anything. It's just like it's Mike. I finally got this coveted mic. I envied this mic. I wanted this mic. I had to wipe it off because it's just disgusting. But
microphone.
Yeah, Mac and he likes to throw his voice, and so it's all like in. So anyway, I got this mic, and I'm really happy with it. But you know what? What I really needed was something like a glass of water instead. I only had thirsty, but no, not that. It gives me a mic instead. He did all for water, and I refused, but nevertheless. So the point is, the churches, they may get people, if they get what they want, doesn't mean what they need.
Okay, right? Let's go back to how do are you off your meds?
Well, I was trying to moderate them a little bit, yes.
Okay. So here's another thing that man thinks they're in charge of. First, what was the first one? Sprinkle or dunk. Okay. Then we talked a little bit about divorce. Okay. Now here's another one for you. Communion. Is it wine or is it?
We guys should figure this out. Man cannot control much. The first man, Adam, couldn't control his wife, and he listened to her when he shouldn't have. We have been on a downward spiral by our very nature, and of course, we just love to talk about sinful nature. Okay, now back to what you're asking.
Okay.
Communion.
So when Jesus at the Last Supper said, "This is my blood, which is shed for you. Do this in remembrance of me." He said blood, and it wasn't blood, right? But it's also do this in remembrance of me. So some people think that wine or grape juice, when it gets inside you, it reacts as if it's Jesus's blood. That's what you're to think. Because they didn't change the Lord's Prayer. I'm sorry, the communion prayer. This is my grape juice. Do this in remembrance of me.
Is there a question in there or just a comment?
Well, so which is it? Is grape juice and blood the same? Or, no, it's not. But it's different in different denominations.
There's two things in the Catholic faith that challenges one. One is that, blood and body, and they say this is Peter, and the other is the succession of bishops, meaning one after the other, which I had to go through and study this a lot. So in answer to this question, only God knows. Period.
Okay.
That's my answer. I really don't think it can be proven. I know it can't be proven.
Well, Jesus said, "This is my blood. Drink it."
And they're in a memory of me. So, but the point is, let's say that was the case. Does that mean it's automatically conferred to Peter from that point on? Who knows? I mean, there's nothing that says that. He didn't write out this thing saying, "Now look, you apostles, I want everybody to know this. Every time you could do this, it's going to change just like I did." He didn't say that. So we can't. Is there a bug in here or something?
No, I'm looking up something.
Oh,
go ahead.
So maybe I'm being too simplistic, but to me, it all comes down to desire. If your desire is to be taken memory or
In remembrance.
In remembrance, thank you, or to believe that it's actually changing, I don't really think God cares as much as you care.
Okay.
I think it's the attitude toward it that becomes more important.
All right. Here's another one. One of the 10 Commandments. Thou shalt keep the Sabbath holy. What's the Sabbath?
You mean as far as which day of the week?
No. What does Sabbath mean? In English, what does Sabbath mean?
Holy?
Saturday.
Oh, that way, yes. I thought you were making a current.
Yeah.
Yes.
The word Sabbath means Saturday.
So,
and the Lord, God gave the commandment to Moses, "You shall keep the Sabbath holy," and yet none of us do.
And the reason for that is very clear, and it's real simple, just to differentiate from the Jews. Period.
Okay.
It's just
why
that
did we
simple.
need to differentiate from the Jews? Aren't we all Jewish? Don't we come from that line?
It's a new covenant. It's
Correct.
It's a new covenant. Jesus is on the scene. He wasn't before.
Okay.
It's in the year of the Lord, not before his arrival.
Okay.
Now, we carry enough things from the Judaism anyway. In my opinion, we probably overdo it sometimes because what they did back then had its reasons, but what we do to now has its own reasons, and because it's in the year of the Lord. They weren't doing that.
Okay, let me give you another one. So why, when Jesus passed away, when he died on the cross, did the curtain fall?
That's a whole separate thing. We'll get into that some other time in detail, but that's a fun one.
Well, but my point is,
we're breaking from the past. We're tearing the temple in two. This building is a building. That's what he's saying.
Okay,
that curtain is. Oh, I'm sorry.
what did it represent? Here's what it represented. The chief priest had to go in the temple and then in the holy area, and then he had to go behind the curtain, and that's where he begged. That's where he offered sacrifices to the God to be in good graces with him. So when the curtain tore in half and fell, why isn't that curtain there anymore?
Now you're talking about in Jewish institutions? Or
No, I'm talking about why in the Christian church isn't there a high priest that goes in there with our sacrifices?
Well, because we're not, even though the song's about behind closed doors and coming out of the closet and all these different things that Mac has experience with those things, but I would say has to do more with the fact that we are tearing apart. We Christians go directly to Jesus.
That's it.
We don't have to go through all this malarkey.
Right.
Now, the Catholic Church tends to depart from that because it works for them for whatever reason. But nevertheless, I think we can access Jesus directly.
We can. Okay, so then the question comes, what's the biblical thing? Is the Catholic Church, which you still have to go into a confession and have something between you as you confess your sins. You're saying that because of Jesus, I can go directly to Jesus.
You know, I don't want to tell you how far off you are, but we're kind of losing the subject matter here. I mean, we're kind of off topic. Do you want to be off topic? Because we are kind of off topic. I have no problem talking about it, but I just want to let you know that.
Well, bring us back on topic,
Well,
please.
I mean, I'm just saying that, I mean, what we should probably, if we want to, maybe the way to, there's a tremendous difference between Catholicism and Protestantism in some areas. Mainly, I look at it more like almost the difference between Catholicism and Judaism in a broad sense. What I mean by that is we've got rules, and these rules are really key, but our rules are better. So it's like, okay, so the Catholic Church has a lot of rules, and over the period of many years, you know, they say a rolling stone doesn't collect moss. I think it's more like a snowball. It gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And so as a result of that, what's happened, a whole lot of stuff got accumulated to the point that it's almost unwieldy. And quite frankly, you know, can you trace Catholicism from the very beginning? We can trace Christianity, but a lot of the Catholicism has been backfilled. They've gone back and said, well, he must have been the first pope because in 1500 we've got a pope now. You know what I mean? It wasn't quite that way. It's been, say, 900, 1200, whatever. So, but nevertheless, so the departure makes it so difficult. You know, that curtain was like the width of your hand. I mean, it was 4 inches thick. It was made out of linen. It was tight wound. It would be impossible. And this is the key thing to understand, Mac. That curtain in that temple, a man could not have done that. It was that monstrous. It was 30 feet by 50 feet roughly, and it ripped down the middle. No man could do that. That was the power of God. Period. So what he was saying to us is very powerful. And so when you get these theologians later on say, my gosh, we're building St. Peter's and they're hosing us with selling these indulgences, and Machiavelli may or may not have been right. The ends do justify the means now. That's what
that is called dogma.
Yeah.
That's called religious.
Yeah. And that's different than doctrine. Okay. And the two get confused. If you're a Catholic, they say, hey, it's all one and the same. Catholic, the canon becomes the law. The canon is man-made. So,
all right, let's get to our last question for today, and then we'll come back with this conversation, part 2. Is the percentage of practicing Christians increasing or declining? Now, please look at what the question says. Don't replace words. Is the percentage of practicing Christians increasing or declining?
Supposedly it's going down.
Okay.
But the ones that are practicing, they're very sincere. And then there's all those that we just don't know about yet.
Well, in Africa, it's increasing.
That's right, yeah.
In China, it's increasing. Believe it or not, in the Muslim world, it's increasing.
Have you ever gotten, I'm going to come back to Catholic. I got picked on one thing. Have you ever gotten on a Catholic mailing list?
No.
Okay, let me tell you what that's like. Now, I haven't been a practicing Catholic for decades. I'm still getting everything from every convent, every type of religious order, several parishes, asking for money, always asking for money. That's the only thing I get. But once you get on that mailing list, you just can't get off. Now, I say that for a purpose. I'm not picking just on Catholic. There's a lot of places like this. So here's one of the things that gets to be
Subaru dealerships.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, I've complained about that. I've actually taken it.
Yeah.
I talked to Mike Bennett, the general manager.
Okay, go ahead.
Good guy. Really good guy.
Go ahead.
So the point is that when you take a tally of Christians, my opinion is that those that are in good standing in any denomination, it's probably less than that, because they have on their memberships all these people that aren't going there and had no commitment.
Right.
So in that sense alone, I think the numbers are fairly accurate in the sense that it is declining.
Okay. All right, I'm Mac McCoy, and we're with Steve today. He's my co-host on the conversation, The Rise of the Non-Denominational Churches. We'll come back and do part 2 a week from today, and we do appreciate you taking the time to listen and watch us and learn. And if you've got any input, it's real easy. Just email me at mac, at theviewfromapew.com. We also want to thank, Divine Truth Christian Store for their worldwide sponsorship of this program. And thanks for listening to The View from a Pew.
Divine Truth Christian Store, where you'll find